My name is Elaine Jones. I am chair of the Gettysburg Area Democracy for America. If it's your first time here, we welcome you, and we certainly welcome all of our regulars that are back again this evening. We do this every first Wednesday. We have a program which we hope will be informative and interesting to people on issues that matter both locally and statewide and nationally. So we invite you to come back. There is a sign-up sheet on the table as you come in. And so if you didn't sign in, that's fine. But if you want to be on our mailing list, then we need your name and your email and your phone number. So first, let me thank everybody for coming, not only our wonderful audience, but all 8 of you who are running for school board. We are very grateful that you took the time to let people get to know you better and be informed voters when May 19th rolls around. And so we're delighted that we've already received a number of questions and that we have just the most expert moderator. I've already watched him in action. This is Alex Hayes, you may know, and we want to thank him for taking some time away from the Gettysburg Times, where he's managing editor, to moderate our panel. He's already spent a lot of time coming up with the questions, but we did promise you'd have an opportunity to give questions tonight if you want. So let me explain how that's going to work. We have 2 people there with cards. They're going to pass them out so that you have them in hand. And if you want to write a question during the program, write it down. Let's try to keep it to short enough that we can handle it. And pass it over to the end. People on this side, if you would pass it, sort of raise your hand if you're over here and you're paying attention. If you're paying attention, I'd like you to pass them forward so that I take all the cards that have come in when we're ready for the question and answer period, which will be in about an hour. And in about an hour, we will pull together all the questions we get from the audience, and we'll pass them up to Alex Hayes, who will look through them and see what he can fit in, and that, don't duplicate something we've already covered. And so he will handle about 20 to 30 minutes of questions and answers. There will be a quick break in between the first hour and that question and answer, where we get to do our favorite thing, which is to ask you to help us pay for this room. So we'll pass a basket around. So we usually have to pay $75 for this room. If you can help us out, that'd be very nice. And at the very end, about 8:30, we're going to ask those who are members, and you're a member if you just show up regularly for a DFA, to adjourn to the cafe for our annual meeting election. This is our annual meeting night. We don't want to take time from the regular program. But at the very end, if you would adjourn over to the cafe, we will have an election of officers in the steering committee. So without further ado, I would like to, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. I have to thank one person who helped me set this all up, and that's Todd Orner. And he's the school board president. And where's Todd? There he is. And now he's also arranging taping that I think is being shown.
Alex can tell you about it.
Yeah, you can tell us about it.
Anybody has not a card to turn in?
Okay, well, just hang on to them. You can hang on to them till you pass them till the end. Pass them down to the front, and we'll give them to Alex before the question and answer period. He already has his questions for the first hour, so this is just for that 20 to 30 minutes afterward. So thank you very much for coming, and now, without further ado, Alex Hayes.
Thank you very much, Elaine. Thank you all for coming out tonight. This is the 4th in a series of debates that I've moderated throughout the course of this election cycle. And all of them, except for this one, was at the Cross Keys Village Brethren Home Community, and I got to say I much like this community a lot better. Like Elaine said, tonight we will hear from the candidates who are seeking the Republican nominations and the Democratic nominations for Gettysburg School Board. School board candidates are allowed to cross-file, so depending, it doesn't matter which party you are in, these people will be on your ballot. Boyd Marion Bud Vance, Keith E. Bruck, William D. Hewitt, Cynthia Ann Birdwell, Stuart S. Kravitz, Paul C. Plank, Carlos E. Wampler, and Jim Henderson. David Green and Catherine Hewitt will also be on both tickets. However, due to prior commitments, they were unable to make it this evening. Just a very short rundown on how the hour will play out. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give an opening statement before we move on to the questions. Then each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer your questions. As a rule of thumb, I ask that all candidates be very respectful to one another, not that I'm worrying about anything, and also interrupting the candidate will not be tolerated. And I ask the same for the audience as well. And also, to touch on what Elaine said, the debate will be on the Gettysburg Times YouTube channel within a matter of days. We also have all of the other debates that we've moderated already up there. The Democratic candidates for commissioner, the Republican candidates for commissioner, and the Adams County Court of Common Pleas judge candidates. Okay, so we'll start with opening statements. We'll start with Mr. Henderson.
Good evening. I'm Jim Henderson. I've been on the school board.
Turn on that.
Pardon?
I can't hear you. I don't think your mic.
No, Alex, you have to take the red dot off and just take them all off, 1 through 8.
Yes, and we're here now. I'm
Technology.
Jim Henderson. I've been on the school board now. This is my 4th year. I'm currently treasurer of the school board, but I also work at the regional level with the 5-county region in South Central Pennsylvania. I'm one of the assistant regional directors there. I put most of my efforts into being prepared for the meetings and also to work with the legislators to try to get them to not cause us money, as we are hurt most financially by the legislative activities. In fact, recently just spent 2 days up there working and talking with the legislators about specifics of where their activities can go to save us money, just reduce the costs there on us. We'll talk more detail about some of those later. I'm a graduate of the Naval Academy. I have a master's from Johns Hopkins University. I've worked 41 years in industry and have drawn a blank. Sorry about that. I've worked 41 years in industry, and I have 40 to 45 courses beyond my graduate degree. So I'm a lifelong learner and believe very strongly in that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Plank, your opening statement, please.
Good evening. My name is Paul C. Plank. As you know, I'm not a professional person whatsoever. I'm just a concerned citizen. I went to Gettysburg High School. I sent children to Gettysburg High School. And I have grandchildren that are attending other local areas. Of course, they don't live here in town. So my main concern, like I said, I'm doing this basically to get some kind of an input as far as seniors are concerned. A lot of you around here are my age. I am retired. I have a part-time job which I do with. I umpire a lot of baseball locally. I think I know some of you gentlemen. So I've had coaches in this audience right here who coached me in high school. And my children, as far as that goes. So my basic thought is to be here to see the other end of it. I'm going to try to work my way into this. As you can well tell, I'm not, you know, I'm from the school of hard knocks. I worked the last 22 years on the street with Let's Quality Foods. I am a former business owner in Adams County. I was in the building business for years. And that's where my concern comes. I'm looking at taxes and everything else that I'm sure we'll get into later on. But that is my forte. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Plank. Mr. Bruck.
Good evening. My name is Keith Brook. I'm a father of 3 children here in the district who go to Gettysburg schools, Lincoln and the middle school. I'm a 21-year classroom teacher. I've taught at 3 different districts in Maryland, and I served on the board from 2009 to 2013, and I was recently appointed to the seat that was vacated by Kristen Woodward. Throughout my 21-year career, the most important thing that I've had to do is keep the best interest of our children at heart. I've done that in the classroom, and I tried to do that as a board member. And this election is important. This election is important. With every generation of Americans, it's getting tougher and tougher for our children to do well. You've done better than your previous generation. Your children, grandchildren are facing a tough struggle. And having my children go to Gettysburg is extremely important to me. We moved from Littlestown because I wanted my kids to go to Gettysburg schools. The opportunities that our kids experience here are so incredible that by having those experiences, even though it's going to be tougher for them than it was for us, they're going to have a leg up than a lot of other kids around the county. So I'm proud to be on the board. I'm proud that my kids go to Gettysburg schools. And once again, my sole concern is to keep the kids' best interests at heart. So thank you for coming tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Ms.
I am Cynthia Birdwell, and I also am a teacher. I've taught for 25 years. I've been with the Carlisle School District for 17 years and taught in Carlisle in a Christian school for 2 years before that. So for 19 years I've taught in Pennsylvania. My husband was in the military for 22 years, and so I traveled with him, and fortunately I had a job where I could also find employment wherever he went. So I've taught school from Rhode Island to Florida and even in California. So I've been a director of a child care center. I teach first grade, so I want to be a voice for the little ones who do not have a voice, and what is going on in the school district. We moved to Gettysburg 11 years ago, and my grandson attends Lincoln Elementary, and I've been concerned with some things in the school district, and that's why I want to run. I want to do a good job for my community. I have the time now to do this. My children are grown, and I have grandchildren now, and I want to give back to the community and give back to the children. I want to be the voice for those children. It is difficult for the children now in school, and it is getting more and more difficult for those children. And as teachers, it's difficult in the classroom. So we're dealing with a lot of things and issues, as you are well aware of, as grandparents, parents, and friends of children. You know that it's a difficult time for them in the classroom. And they are my number one choice for doing this. I want the best interest for the children. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vance.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank Ms. Jones for inviting us all down here, and that was a great thing that we get to do this, and thank you, Mr. Hayes, for moderating. My given name is Coyd Marion. With a name like that, you've got to have a nickname, so I was named Bud by my grandma when I was just a tiny little toddler. So I usually go by Bud, although when I was processing my application, they told me at the election office I had to use the name that was on my driver's license, which was my full name. And that goes back with my previous history. I'm a retired military officer. I spent 27 years active duty. Retired as lieutenant colonel. I've had a variety of jobs. I've commanded in combat, so the pressure is no issue. I've had numerous jobs in personnel management, facility management, dining facility management. My degrees, I've got a bachelor's from East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, Tennessee, in geography. My master's degree is in human resources management, and from Pepperdine University in Malibu. Like I said, 27 years active duty, over 30 years out there working. My wife Cindy and I decided to retire to the Gettysburg area because we just love the community, we love the people, and for us history and military buffs, it's a holy grail to be in Gettysburg. But there's a lot of concerns that all of us have got about making sure that we do the proper thing and so forth. My first priority is to the students and to the teachers that's supporting those students. Without them, we will never prepare our students as they move out into the cruel world that's ahead of us. So my goal, and we'll be talking much more in depth later on, I'm sure, but it's to ensure that we've got a budget that we can live with, but not cutting anything that pertains to the students and the teachers. We will take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vance. Mr. Blank. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Mr. Kravitz.
Good evening, I'm Stuart Kravitz. I also want to thank Alex and Elaine for bringing us here and allowing us to get introduced to the folks that are here. And as a 10-year now member of the Gettysburg community, coming up from a little further south down at Montgomery County, Maryland, let me just brief you on my history in that area. Since my kids started going to school, and they all went through school in Montgomery County, Maryland, my wife and I, Paula, have been involved with the school system. I've tutored in the school system. I've run guidance advisory committees in the school system, both high school and middle school and grade school. I've done all of the fatherly things, the softball, the baseball, the basketball. But the key is that Montgomery County is a viable 94.5% graduation rate, with 92% going to colleges. I'd like to say that I was behind that, but I can't. I was part of it. I've worked with the principals, I've worked with the guidance counselors to ensure that my kids got a good education. And I'm proud to say that all of my children, my 4 children, have grown into very successful individuals, and I'm ready to give back to our community. I've been doing it for 40 years. I've taught at the college level. I've worked 40 years with IBM and Lockheed Martin as an educator, as a teacher of teachers, as a presentation manager, and feel very comfortable now that I'm in an area where I see a school district raising taxes minutely. Let me mention one thing though. I'm not running because the current school board members I feel are deficient. I think everybody at this table has done a marvelous job, and I congratulate them for working on the school board. It's not an easy job. But I feel that I can contribute. I've got a good background. I run major programs in air traffic management, and very happy to be here, and we'll take your questions as we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hewitt.
Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Because we sound like we're in a tunnel. And I've got some bad hearing, and so if we can do this.
It will affect how you're heard on the recording, Bill, but
okay.
It's your choice.
My name is Bill Hewitt, William Hewitt, and I'm running for school board again. I was also a career military man. I spent 31 years in the Army. As I told the general on the last day, I said, now I have seen everything, I can retire. He didn't appreciate that comment much. We've lived in Gettysburg for about 15 years or so, 16 coming up. It's a great place. Our job is to, on the school board, is to create an environment, to establish parameters. It's not just the students we need to look out for and the teachers, but it's also the community and the community needs. It's also the taxpayer. And our job is to balance those needs, cognizant of what our product is, which is the student. I've spent years in the Army. I've been an instructor at Command and General Staff College. I've been supervising 64 teachers in that capacity, so I understand that. I think we have done a fairly good job the last 3.5 years. We have 9 members. We don't always agree, but we seem to be able to reach a consensus, at least in middle ground, on a variety of topics. People have mentioned taxes up here. In the last 3 years or so, our taxes have been the lowest taxes in the last 20, and so we can document that if you wish. More importantly, our test scores are going up. Last year, in every single category, language arts, math, and biology, Gettysburg High School was the highest in the county. Our middle school is in the top 5% in the county. And that requires the good work of teachers and students and parents and a school board that is able to set parameters and balance the different demands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and finally, Mr. Wamford.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Walpler. You'll have to pardon me. I have a sinus. The allergies are out there. I want to thank the DFA for having this forum. I want to thank all of you for coming out. As a former social studies teacher, this is what I taught students democracy is all about. This is democracy in action, right? I want to give you all a thumbs up for coming out tonight. Appreciate that. I'm an educator for 38 years. I'm now retired. All 38 years have been in this school district, the Gettysburg Area School District. I was a classroom teacher for 25 years. The last 13 years I was an assistant principal and the athletic director at the Gettysburg High School. During those 38 years, I participated in many numerous district committees that served on staff development to improve classroom instruction and district safety. While a classroom teacher, I also was a coach. I coached middle school football and middle school wrestling, and I also served as the middle school athletic director. So as you can see, I immersed myself wholly into the district for those 38 years. My wife and I, we've lived here since I started teaching here 38 years, those 38 years ago. We have 3 children. They all graduated from Gettysburg. I now have 2 grandchildren in the schools here. So I do have a vested interest in becoming a board member to serve the community that I've lived in for more than 40 years. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Wampler. We'll now move on to questions. As Elaine said, all these questions were prepared by me. No, none of the candidates have seen them beforehand. The first question will start off with Mr. Vance. We're going to rotate the order every single time so everyone has what appears to be a fair shot. What do you believe are the Gettysburg Area School District's greatest strengths when it comes to preparing students for the future?
Greatest strengths I think that we've got for the students in preparing them for the future is the excellent teaching core that we've got out here, the support base. I believe in the sort of the total student concept. I support arts and sciences. I support the athletic programs. It all helps to build a quality student. But as Bill Hewitt mentioned earlier, the test scores are going up, so we're doing the right things. There's enough money that we can fund the things that they need, that they're working on. And you know, the teaching and for the students and so forth, I look at the overall spectrum, everything from advanced placement down to the normal classrooms, the 3 R's, so to speak, getting them adjusted with the IT side. Special education is important. We've got to ensure that we've got that quality training and everything going throughout, and I'm satisfied that that's happening because putting students first, and that's because of the teaching, the building of the parents, and the camaraderie that goes with the parents, the school board, the administrators, and the teachers. We can continue to produce top quality students that are facing that real world ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bruck, same question.
The greatest strengths are pretty much what I related to earlier, where we offer in this district a diverse opportunity for all of our students. Thank you for the information. Mr. Vance hinted on it with the AP opportunities, the advanced placement, where students can leave Gettysburg High School and have 15 to 18 college credits before they step on a college campus, saving them thousands of dollars. College into high school, once again, the opportunity to earn college credits while still in high school. The tech prep program that we have here at Gettysburg is one of the top in the state, providing opportunities to students. In the arts, there isn't a school district in this county or the eastern part of the state that has a better band and orchestra program. I've been teaching for 21 years. I know there are some kids that come to school for the academics and they do their best at the academics, but there are a lot of kids that come to school because of the band, because of the orchestra, because of the athletics, and it takes a lot of different programs to meet the needs of all of our individual students. And we do a tremendous job. Our teachers are top notch. My oldest son is in 7th grade, my middle son is in 3rd grade, and every single teacher that we've had, every administrator that I've dealt with are professional, they're caring, and like I said before, I'm extremely pleased with the education that my kids are getting here in Gettysburg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hewitt.
The greatest strengths we have are our people. If you could go to an elementary school and see our students grabbing onto the leg of our principal and smiling and having him smile back and know their names, every single one of them. If you could go to our middle school and see the wonderful things they're doing, whether or not it's donating money for the Nepal earthquake recently, or jeans for teenagers, but also performance. If you could talk to our counselors, every single one of those counselors are doing yeoman's work and making sure that we're not leaving any student behind. Not just preparing them for college, with college in the high school and courses over at TAC and at Gettysburg College, but also making sure every single student makes the most potential they can out of what they're willing to put into it. And to channel that so that again we set the parameters for that to flourish and to blossom. So people are our greatest strengths. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Birdwell.
I would agree that the people are the greatest strength. When we moved to, that's why we moved to Gettysburg. We brought our children here camping when they were younger, and met so many people in the campgrounds and around Gettysburg and loved it, and decided that we would move here when my husband was able to move on in his job, and we moved to Gettysburg. And we were just in Walling Springs, but we wanted to come to Gettysburg. The history, that's another strength that the Carlisle School District has, is the history, the location here, where you can take children. You're so close to so many different things, to Washington, D.C., to other sites that you can take children and teach them outside of the school. Another strength are the people that come in that speak other languages in the school district, your ELL programs, and helping those children that do not speak English, and teachers that speak both languages for them and helping them to learn English. Many strengths in the district. My grandson loves his teacher. He loves 5th grade. He's looking forward to going into 6th grade. So, and I can't say enough about his teacher he's had this year. She's been wonderful for him. I think the history alone that you have here, the opportunities that those children have, and also with HAC, the classes. That's what I was going to mention, the college classes. They have the opportunity to take the classes. So they do have those credits before they enter college. So I think it's a wonderful thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kravitz.
My first impression of this question is you're asking about the Gettysburg area school district and why we have strengths. But I think if I went to any school district and sitting in a room with the members of the council, I would hear the same thing. Teachers are important in every district. I'm sure if they all sat in front of you, they say pretty much the same thing, as the teachers and the people that run the school are quality. And I think this is a very quality organization from what I see from the Gettysburg area school districts. But again, go to Connecticut or California and sit in the same type of meeting, and these answers would be given the same way. There's very few people that will basically get up in front of you and tell you that the teachers are terrible, that the students don't listen, and there's no room for improvement. This is a great community with a great school district. It can get better. we can graduate more seniors. We can put more seniors into college. And I think the biggest holdup right now, and it's not Gettysburg area school district, it's probably Pennsylvania, and that is curriculum development. I worked on curriculum development to south of here, like I said, in Maryland. And we've changed curriculum so that when children graduate from high school and they're going to college, they've had a seamless set of courses that lead them right into the industry that they're looking at. They don't have to take English 1, whether it's AP or not, in college. They've already gone through that thing. They don't have to take culinary arts. Speaking of culinary arts, if you guys haven't gone to the culinary arts program at Gettysburg High School, and the students put together the package, it was magnificent. The last Italian dinner was absolutely wonderful. I suggest everybody, when they see it, go to a movie movie. That's one very good thing that I can say about Gettysburg Area School District. Good culinary arts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blank. All right, strengths. As most of you know, I'm one of the few probably that have been born and raised here. Yes, communicate, education-wise, I got a very sound education. I traveled different places in the country and out of the country. I was ready for it. I knew what to do. I've had 3 children who went through the same process. They had the small town raising, but they had a world-class education by these folks, these teachers that I see sitting, some here that I remember and knew. My daughter runs a PTA in Frisco, Texas, in their school district. I have a son that teaches in New Oxford. So you can see, Gettysburg education students are around. They moved out. They moved around the world. My main concern is, I got to say, it's cost. I want to keep back at it. I don't want to take it out of teachers. Y'all don't get paid enough. My son tells me things, it will raise my, I don't have any hair, but it will raise it. Okay? It's just amazing what you all put up with and what you do in this day and concern. So these are my concerns. And again, all going back to cost. I have questions about why it costs this much. And we'll find out. We'll see what happens as we go on into this thing. And I'm learning, believe me, just like y'all. These folks here spend a lot more time in financing than I have. I'm going to find out about financing. So it's a system of checks and balances, I know, and we'll see how it works out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walford.
Strengths. Well, I think of this district is the community. It's the students, parents. I look at, after this 38 years, I saw tens of thousands of students graduate after being educated in Gettysburg. They went on to post-secondary schools, trade schools, entered the military, or went right into the workforce, and they were ready. Many of them stayed right in this community and are working here. They're business owners. They serve on the local police forces, volunteer fire companies. You name it, they're around, and they're proud of it. And some of them hold local government positions. Some are actually running for political office on the 19th, and they're hoping that they win. I think that's our strength, is our students. Every school could say that, but I think Gettysburg students are really special, maybe because I live here.
Thank you very much, and finally, Mr. Henderson.
One of the first things he told us was don't spend 2 minutes saying ditto. But it is very important. What has been said is very important. The thing I want to focus on is that the children, they are our future. And the support of the community is extremely important in making sure that that happens, that they get the best education they can. We are very proud that we have a school system that is very well balanced educationally and has a good list of opportunities of non-major courses from which the students can draw to expand their education. Already has been mentioned the number of students that are in advanced placement. We are very good in this school district at having that, and we have seen quite a lot of success from that. students move on, they go to college, and they are successful because they've got a good start here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson. We'll move on now to the next question. What are your thoughts on tax increment financing proposals that are currently out there in relation to the proposed Discovery Gettysburg and Gettysburg Crossing projects? And we'll start with Mr. Plank.
I think I touched on finances just a minute ago when I was talking about concern for cost. At this point, I'm going to be educated like everybody else. I think sitting at this table going into this new. I have no opinion basically on anything except what will help us get a handle on the cost that it's costing us for our students and how much it's costing to educate. I'm looking at all ways. There are a number of different ways that are on the table. I'm not saying one is concerned over the other. I would like to know how, if I'm sitting on a board here of just these gentlemen, these ladies and gentlemen, I should say, what they think. I want to know basically what we're looking at before I vote for anything as far as what we're saying. I'm not saying one system's any better than the other. There are economic developments I think that we need to concern ourselves with, or at least have some economic development in this community, in Adams County, period. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to say that we can make these things work. I'm not saying there's a specific way to make it work at this point. I think with more help from other, like I say, numbers on paper, we'll make this thing work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wampler.
First of all, let me let you know that I do believe in economic development. I think it's important for every community to have economic development. But to have it done at the expense of students, using public tax dollars to promote private development, I'm opposed to that. I would stand firm on that. So be it. I'm doing a lot of studying on the TIF, as it's called. First I thought, oh, this is not a bad idea. We can bring in more development. But when I realized that the tax dollars would be deferred to help pay off the loans for the financing of the development, we still would have to raise taxes or come up with taxes to continue to pay for the education of our students now and in the future. And I didn't see any guarantees that in 10 or 20 years that development would be totally done and that we then would recoup those tax dollars. So I'm going to end on that. If you have any, want to talk to me about it afterwards, I will. Thank you.
Mr. Brock.
In a perfect world, where we wouldn't have to worry about the increasing costs to school districts from PSERS, which is the retirement system, I think we could look at each individual TIF and look at it individually and see what the possible benefits could be and make a decision on how long it would take to recoup costs, what it will cost the district, and decide whether or not we can do it. But at this point, I agree with Mr. Wampler that given our economic state right now and the fact that our politicians in Harrisburg aren't helping us out when it comes to PSERS and keep passing the costs on to the school districts, it would have to be a perfect TIF for me to say that, yeah, I would do that. A strong educational system is the backbone of any strong economy. Giving the kids the proper education to let them go out and be the business owners, create the jobs. That's what we need. What concerns me, though, in this election is that, and I'm sure you've seen the signs, there's a group backing some candidates. And that group, there are connections between those individuals that are backing the candidates who have direct connections to Discovery Gettysburg. For so long, we've all complained about the fact that we can't stand politics in Washington and Harrisburg because big money and political action committees are dictating what gets done and what doesn't get done. And guess what, folks? This election is happening here. So please be informed, know who this group is, what they're about, and I am not saying anything negative about the people that are running. You know, the night I was reappointed, I said that they all impressed me, and I still believe that. I'm concerned about the group that's backing them.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson.
I believe in economic development. I just cannot support it at the expense of our taxpayers to fund large for-profit operations. Economic development is the job of economic development committees of the townships that are seeking the new development. It is not the job of the school district. Our job as a school board is to provide the best education for our students who are our future, without placing unnecessary burden on our taxpayers. The best impact we do have in economic development is to be among the best school systems, because that draws industry, that draws business, that draws people who have young children, and they want to have the best school systems for them. That is the impact that we can have for economic development. In the case of tax incremental funding, the load that is being needed is secured by a TIF. If we go with the TIF, it becomes the loan collateral, if you will. If something happens, who's going to pay that loan off? But the problem is that they would take the tax incremental funding would take the highest percentage of the new revenues that we would see from taxes on the new development and give them back to the operation that is trying to build or go ahead. If we do that, we would have to continue to maintain high tax rates on all the rest of the people in this area that we could otherwise lower if we had that income coming into us. I was personally responsible for over $100 million in economic development impact in my last 3 years of business. I cannot support economic development at the expense of the schools or of the individual current taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Hewitt.
As one of the school board members that was on the TIF committee.
Can I ask that they speak into the mic a little more? It's really difficult
Can
to
you hear me
hear.
now?
Yes.
Let's go. Thank you.
As a member of the TIF committee, there are two TIFs under consideration. One is Gettysburg Crossing, which is generally known as the Walmart committee. And the other one is Discovery Gettysburg, which is out in a rural community. On the committee, we looked at the law. And the law talks about certain things. It's in conjunction with urban redevelopment, urban renewal. One TIF is, you can make an argument that it's in a built-up area. The other TIF is not. One TIF, when we asked them questions about specifics, we got very clear answers. We knew exactly what we were dealing with. They gave us more information than what we asked for, very upfront. And so I feel comfortable whether I'm going to support that or not if it ever comes in front of me. In that regard, I support the taxpayer. What is in the best interest of the taxpayer? Always. The other TIF, we had trouble getting information out of, to be honest with you. We asked questions, we didn't get straight answers. Maybe it's because the plan was not yet fully developed, I do not know. Maybe things have changed since then. We had Mr. Klein speak with us, who was also one of the supporters of the signs, et cetera, that you've seen. For example, under the TIF law, the people that are responsible for the development can be paid for out of TIF dollars. So we asked them, are you going to pay your salaries out of taxpayer dollars? The response back we got was, we will comply with the IRS rules. That was not the answer we were looking for. I don't think taxpayers ought to be paying salaries of the developers, in my opinion. So I think there's some more work to be done with that second TIF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kravitz.
I knew this was going to be a hot topic. First of all, I decided to run for the school board long before I talked to anybody about getting backed by certain individuals. So I'm ready to go on the school board. My first priority in the school board is education for children. Economic development is a very important part of that. People said two nice things, and I'll talk to you about it later. But I'm my own person, I'm my own man. I have my own decisions to make. I do what's best for the community. I do what's best for our children first. I will not do anything that will impact tax revenue drawn from our community more than we are paying today, and we are paying a lot of school tax today. I will not support anything that shows economic development to be paid to individuals regardless of who they are. Mr. Klein is one person. Mr. Klein has one vote. Mr. Klein does not own me. We will do what's right for children. We will be on the school board that will make Gettysburg Area School District much more powerful than it is today, at a lesser price for the taxpayer. That's what I'm running on. Thank you.
Mr. Vance.
Obviously, I don't have all the information that some of the previous board members had concerning previous meetings and so forth on TIF. At the risk of committing candidate suicide, I will tell you I will thoroughly analyze that. I have no obligations one way or the other. As Mr. Kravitz said, I'll caveat on him a little. I'm my own person. I started my candidacy on my own, and if you've been out driving the roads, I'm sure you've seen Bud Vance with a little flag, and it says vote. I am my own person. If you read underneath that, it says paid for by candidate. I paid for that. I started on my own. There was 4 others that I knew that were running. We sat down, we talked, we arrived at a similar goal, which is the highest quality education we can provide, and not at the expense of the taxpayer any more than what we must spend. On the budget, we've got to start prioritizing, go line by line down it, and see what's higher priority than others. But on the TIF, and I'm for economic development. The more houses we get built, the more tax base that we've got to support it, which may lower those of us that are homeowners. But I have not reached a decision one way or the other on the TIF. From what some of the stuff I've heard, it doesn't sound like a good idea. But I didn't spend my time in the military and all of my other jobs in making quick decisions that I didn't have all the data on. And I will be upfront and tell you, I don't have that data. But I am my own person. No one owns me. And to use an old phrase, that I grew up in Appalachia, I'm nobody's lapdog. I'm here to make sure that we provide the best quality of education to our students, supporting our teachers at the lowest cost that we can do that. And there's a lot of other things, but I'm sure we'll get to them later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Birdwell.
Yes, we are running as a team, and Bud started. I also wanted to run and was approached and asked if I would run for the school board, and I said yes. We are all independent thinkers. We put a team together of 5 people that we think complement each other very well. But I'm also, as a school teacher, not going to do anything to jeopardize the education of the children, anything that's going to jeopardize teachers' jobs. So I don't know enough about TIF either. I would have to analyze it. I would have to see more data. I would have to know more about it. But I'm also for economic development. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to accept TIF. So I know there are a lot of rumors out there. There were rumors that we were going to let teachers go and to save money. That's not true. That's not our priority. It's not our number one thing we want to do. No. I'm a teacher myself, and I can't see myself letting teachers go. We need more teachers. So it is a hot topic, and it gets you kind of hot under the collar a little bit when people want to think that you're running together just because there's a hidden agenda. There is no hidden agenda for the 5 of us. So we're just running together as a team. We know that we fit well together, that we can solve problems. We're problem solvers. I wanted to also mention the debt bit. I said I wanted to speak for the children. So our school debt is spiraling out of control, and I don't want to leave this debt for the children to have to take care of later. So I think that we can come up with some alternative ways to lower the debt, but it doesn't necessarily have to be tailored. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. Do you believe there are areas within the school district where costs can be cut? If so, what specifically? And Ms. Birdwell, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, I work in a school district. I work in the Carlisle area school district, and they've done a lot of experimental things to lower costs in their district too. Solar panels on our buildings. We've had to cut back on some things. We've changed the maintenance in our buildings so that it's not so expensive. We've had a lot of changes in that district too. That doesn't necessarily mean it would be good for Gettysburg, but it's some alternatives to look at. It's some other things that you can, ways to save money. That doesn't mean I want to put solar panels on all the schools either. That's something that would have to be looked at. And as a team, we would work together to find out what is the best way to save money in a school district. I'm a taxpayer. The taxes are very high. I moved from an area where the taxes were half of what we're paying now. So I would like to lower the taxes. My children graduated from a different district. They had a fine education, even though we didn't have to pay the taxes that we were paying there. So I would like to lower the taxes and the tax burden on the taxpayer here.
Thank you very much. Mr. Henderson.
Well, thank you. The first thing I want to say is that 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when I moved here, the state was funding almost 50% of the cost of the schools. The state at this time is funding 29% of the cost of our schools. That is something that is very unfair. It is something that I've been working with the legislators to change. It is something that the Pennsylvania School Board Association is working very strongly with. Our platform for this year and for next year is including things that will help do that. We want them to take more control on the retirement funding. We want them to take more control on giving good funding across the state, not an unformulated funding, but a good system that gives the school systems better funding. That is where I have been working hard. Are there areas where costs can be cut? Right now, I do not see areas where costs can be cut. We have reduced our programs to the minimum that we can have them without cutting out programs. We have a debt, yes, but that capital debt is going to be retired in 12 years' time. It will be completely retired. There is nothing that is going to keep that from happening unless someone comes in and we have to take and pay a lot more to keep our school system viable. I will not get into the details of PSERS funding at this time. If it comes up as a later question, I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Broadley.
Places where costs can be cut. Place where costs can be cut. Mr. Henderson's right. We've done an awful lot as a district to reduce the costs over the last 5 to 6 years. We've cut dozens of teaching positions in the last 5 to 6 years. We've done energy efficiency studies within the last 5 years to see where we can be more efficient energy-wise. We've formed partnerships with Adams County Electric in our tech prep program, so that we can get some business money from the community and to help cut costs. Mr. Henderson also mentioned the PSERS. We can't cut the tax base now because our PSERS, the amount that we owe for PSERS over the next 7 to 10 years is going to continue to increase. We cut the tax base more, we still have to pay the state. So once again, it goes back to our Harrisburg politicians not doing their job. We've cut dozens of teachers. If we cut the tax base, we're going to have to cut many more. We're going to have to cut programs. And once again, I'm a teacher. It's May. My kids are looking towards the end of the month in graduation. They're going out with millions of other kids across this country who are stepping out into the real world. I like to think that the students at Gettysburg have a step up on a lot of those kids because of the opportunities that they have, because of the programs that I mentioned. We cut the tech prep, we cut the other programs. They're at the same level as everyone else. So as a parent, as grandparents, I think you'll agree with me that we want our kids to have a step up when they get out in the working world and start fighting.
Thank you. Mr. Kravitz.
For 35 years working for IBM, Lockheed Martin, my major job was to cut costs in all military projects. There are many, many ways you can cut costs in those areas. There's got to be ways more than we can do in the school system. Going green over a long period of time is going to be one of the major answers, whether you put solar panels up or go geothermal, whichever way you're going to go, it is a way to do it. Gettysburg High School is now, 17, 18 years old. It's facing an overhaul. That's going to be a very large capital expenditure. You must get together with organizations to get that capital expenditure down. HVAC is going to be needed to be put into Gettysburg High School. There are ways to cut budgets, working with the community, especially working with Harrisburg, and Harrisburg is going to be the answer. Giving our representatives to bring in more money. There's a large disparity of what Philadelphia schools get per student than Gettysburg gets per student. We get about $2,000 or so per student compared to almost $11,000 or $12,000 for other communities. We've got to put Harrisburg to support our school system a lot more than they're doing now. Pieces, I've just heard the word a few times over the last couple of weeks. I have not yet to study how we do that, but again, it sounds like Harrisburg has to be the people that will handle our retirement issues as well. There's ways to partner with various community activities that we can lower school costs and cost to run our schools. So based on that, I think it needs a fresh set of eyes to look at the budget line by line, transportation, how we can better transportation so we're not paying so much plus and cost. It needs a fresh set of eyes now to look at these things. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wampler.
Having been employed in the district as an administrator for the last 13 years, as I mentioned, I was involved in quite a few of the building of the budgets, the year of budgets. And as athletic director, I sat in those meetings, and the administrative team was given direction by the board on what kinds of money there was, what we could spend, and we had to sit there and put our heads together, and we had to come up with ways to meet the budget. As athletic director, I'll use that as an example. I had to get creative, and my funds were cut, but I didn't want to shortchange the sports, so I did things like, okay, I eliminated 9th grade soccer because that was a high school sport, and coaches got more at a high school level than you did middle school, but I moved it to the middle school level, which gave more kids an opportunity to play the sport at a lower cost. So those are the kinds of things that I was involved in, but all administrators were, and to say that where can we cut now? I think the district has been doing that year in and year out. We've not replaced staff. More and more, less custodial staff. They're doing more work than they ever did before. But they do it. They don't complain. And you've been in our buildings. I tell you, our high school is 18 years old. I get teams that come and visit, fans from other schools, and they walk in and say, wow, is this new? I said, no, it's been here since 1999. They go, really? You got to be careful. Yes, they've had to raise taxes over the last few years, but they've kept them at the bare minimum that they could. And part of that is because of the state. School boards have become the bad guys because the state does not live up to their turning over the funds that they should be giving us at the local level.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
Thank you. sorry. I tell you what, I'm not for cutting this program or that program or whatever. One of the things I learned in the military, I handled budgets for over 30 years. I never ran over on a budget. I never had a deficit, and it's routinely that we've got deficits now. Our budget's going up over $1 million a year. I think we can manage that budget by, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, prioritizing every single line item, go through line item by line item. Let's look at some alternatives, and just a couple of them. The vehicle fleet and so forth. Can we contract that out? Would it be cheaper? I don't know if these analyses are done or not. There's a lot of car dealerships in the area. Perhaps we can even get some donation vehicles down here, put a little sign on this, donated or whatever. But one of the things that we've got to do is become more proactive and less reactive. When I was in the military, my leadership style was management by wandering around, and that means getting out of the office, looking around and seeing. At the last board meeting, I heard that we need to repave the school, the parking lots at Gettysburg High School and at Lincoln. The cost of that's approximately $1 million. My question is, and I'm sitting back listening, I can't participate yet, but why do we wait to replace it? Why didn't we patch it when there was things going on? We need to have, all of us need to have our eyes on the things that's going on out there and start solving problems in a preventive maintenance side instead of getting into the replacement mode. We've just got to change the mindset of cut across the board, do away with this funding, take it line by line, item by item. It will take longer, more dedication on all our parts, but I'm willing to do that. I understand that I'm only one of 9 voting members, but there's other members on the board that I think I can easily persuade to do that. We've got to take an in-depth look, do thorough analysis, and actually manage the budget that we've got and not just keep increasing it and getting nothing better out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Plank. Thank you. Listening to folks that I've just listened to the last couple of minutes, as you can see, I'm on a very, I would say, short end of the string here. Basically, I have to reduce my costs the same way you folks reduce yours. I'm on fixed income. I go out and work. If I want to make more money, or if I want to spend something, I go earn it. And I think you're on the same boat. A lot of you sitting right around here. I don't waste my money by any means. At least I don't think so. Some people might think I do. But I'm looking at that. I'm looking at spending. Where are these dollars going, and how quickly are they going, and for what? Are we buying the right items? Maybe we can get a little cheaper item to do the same job. These all cost-wise, all this maintenance comes back into that. Are we wasting maintenance dollars? Mr. Vance already touched on the parking lot. We talked about that. Yes, there are 5 of us running here as a group, and I think we've come up with some pretty darn good things and some good ways to do things. We don't have the availability that other members already have. They've sat through the school district meetings. They've gone through these items, these little line items that Bud was talking about, and they have some sort of an idea of what's going on already. All I can do is sit back and say, okay, I'm willing to cut costs. I'm not interested in increasing your taxes, anybody's taxes. When you're looking at the fact that there's a 10-year prognostication of taxes in the school district up for the next 10 years in a row, I mean, there's got to be another reason. There's got to be another answer somewhere along the line. You folks will find your answers to do your home. You'll turn back the gas. You'll cook less, or whatever the case might be. You won't go out to dinner next week. You can't afford it. And I think we need to do the same thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Mr. Hewitt.
Can you hear me? If anyone ever attends a meeting of the school board or reads an article in the paper about what happened at school board, you know, if my name is mentioned, it has to do with costs. Every year when I look at a budget, I take 2 years ago budget, last year's and this year's, every page, and I go through it. If you have a suggestion that I missed something, please tell me. and I mean that sincerely. This year, salaries are going up $513,000. PSERS is going up $300,000. We have a 2% inflation rate. Add all that up, and that's about $1.5 million. Your taxes aren't going up $1.5 million if you look at the newspaper a couple days ago. So we're taking that and looking at things and judging and prioritizing now. Sometimes when we look at taxes, we say, I'm paying too much. You're looking at it as half full. Here's some stats that you're going to go, I didn't know that. For example, in the last 4 years, we could have asked for, on this board, $22.4 million more than what we did, total. But we did not, but the law allowed it. We could have over the last 10 years, that's not just the current board, but previous boards for the last 10 years. If we had asked for every single tax increase to the maximum, and also asked for exceptions that are allowed by law, the total for the last 10 years would be $86 million. We didn't ask for it. So when people say cut, 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 we're doing it, but we're also not going to slash programs. We're not going to cut opportunities. Just me. And if you have an idea about how to cut taxes, I'll give you my email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we're now going to go on to questions from the audience. Obviously,
Wait 1 minute.
sure.
1 minute. We've already, I think, gathered the questions, so we shouldn't have any more. But if Carolyn would be kind enough to start the basket around, so that we don't keep you afterward, and if you can help us out with I didn't get to take the collection.
The basket is going towards the cost of the room, I assume, and not the Gettysburg School Board budget.
No,
Just wanted to make sure that was out there.
We have to pay rent. We don't budget.
Okay, we are going on the questions from the audience. If you see my staff, we are not going to get to them all tonight, so I'm sure these candidates will be more than happy to talk to anyone afterwards or get in contact later. The first question from the audience is, have you ever been to a school board meeting? And if so, what do you observe as its strengths and weaknesses? And we'll start with Ms. Birdwell.
Yes, I've been to school board meetings. In 25 years of teaching, I've been to several school board meetings. I've been to a school board meeting in Gettysburg. Are you talking about what do I observe in the Gettysburg?
I believe that's
Okay.
the question.
Is that, whoever wrote the question, would that be the Gettysburg school board meeting? The Gettysburg school board meeting that I went to, I observed the same thing that most everybody would see at a school board meeting. Those sitting up front, those asking questions, sometimes there's children coming in singing, showing, performing, that kind of thing for the school board. I saw all of them congenial, getting along, people asking questions from the audience. Typical school board meeting, and what I've experienced.
Thank you, Mr. Plank.
At this time, I gotta say no. I've never been to a school board meeting. I've heard different people talk about them and what they're doing, so I'm gonna go by hearsay, and I'm not gonna do that. But I'll be right up front with you. Once again, I have a very busy life with the children. I just spend a lot of time with family. I spend a lot of time doing my own thing. I just haven't been around to it. This is something I picked up and started just months ago. Was asked to consider running for it. And again, I just had that opportunity. It's something that I intend to do and go from there. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruckner.
Could you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yes, have you ever been to any Gettysburg school board meetings, and if so, what do you observe? So basically for you, what do you observe as the school board strengths and weaknesses?
Okay. I've been to a couple. Our greatest strength, when I left the board a year and a half ago, after my first term ended, I made the statement that night that it was the greatest team I've ever been a part of. one of the greatest teams I've ever been a part of. And I truly meant that. We all have differing opinions and different ideas as to how things should get done. But we all have a common core philosophy that we're going to do the students well. We're going to do what's best. We're going to work together. We're going to be we're going to disagree, but we're going to be respectful of each other's opinions. And we've done that year after year since I've been on 4 years, and now a month and a half I've been back. So I thoroughly enjoy working with the fellow members of the board and look forward to continuing to serve with them for the benefit of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
Once I decided that I was running for the school board, yes, I've been to every meeting since then. And I have observed various strengths and weaknesses. On the light note, the strengths, if anyone wants to show up and get some of the best cookies in the world, they are phenomenal. And the ones that are raspberry filled are to die for. Anyway, the real strengths though on the board, they are a very cohesive group. They work together very well. They do resolve their issues professionally without yelling, screaming, that kind of thing, which I hope whoever's elected on the board in the future will be in the same kind of a mode. They're professional, they do it in the best way, keeping things going. There's a set agenda. One of the weaknesses is I'd like to see that agenda posted previously, and I'm not sure that all of the items that are to be discussed are passed out as early as I would think, as I would want if I were on the board. I want plenty of time to work with it. Another weakness that I think is maintaining a status quo type of an attitude on a couple of things. One's very minor as far as money is concerned. But there was a vote on whether or not we should continue charging $20 for a high school student parking in high school. There was only one that said no, and some of the comments from the other members were, well, I did that when I was there decades ago, or words to that effect. Just because it's been there for a long time, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but if the wheel's broken, maybe we need to replace it. Maybe we need to look at some new ideas. And I'm hoping that, we get a chance to do that. I personally think that we ought to give those students their parking passes. A lot of those students, I worked when I was in high school. They charged me for parking. I don't know that I could have afforded to do that. But I think our parents are paying enough through the various things that they're working for with our students. They shouldn't be tasked with $20, nor should the student that's having to work an evening job or an afternoon job. I don't think they should have to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kravitz.
I too have attended school board meetings since I've put my hat in the ring. I want to commend Todd for running it very professionally. I think it's done very well. I echo most of the things that Bud said as well. That things should be passed out earlier so that we can get comments and we can get questions. I don't think the school board meeting itself is where we're going to learn things. I would much prefer to be in the workshops, because I think that's where the work is done. As Bill says, working on the budgets, I would like to be sitting in that and listening to how they work that budget, as opposed to just taking the vote on what Bill has presented. 15 or 20 items that took about 18 seconds to vote on Monday night. I did sit through the part of the planning session on the budget, which Brad Hunt presented. One of the weaknesses is, as he was going through each one, I didn't hear any of the school board members challenge a number, and I don't know if because they have total respect in Brad, and what he gives them is what's going to be law. I would like to see more challenging, but again, I think it might have been done at the workshops, but we can connect with that's right. So I went to school board meetings. It is professional. They do a good job. And I'm impressed with some of the comments that were made in that school board meetings. But there are some deficiencies which I'm sure you'll pick up and work as we go. If Kim will be invited to the workshops, that's where I would like to hear what goes on.
Absolutely public. The workshops are public, and they are advertised.
They are advertised?
Yes, they are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson.
Thank you. First, I want to say that we have a lot of diversity on the members of the school board at this time. And that diversity has worked to our benefit and that we're able to look at different sides of every object that we have to go through and come to some consensus on it. And as you've seen, we have had differences in voting at times, but the majority of the time, we have already come to consensus because we've done that in the workshop. The personnel issues we can't discuss in the workshop. Those are done in executive session. As far as the weaknesses, I think that the biggest weakness that we have as a school board is the lack of participation of this community. And that is shown most strongly when we have these budget workshops, 2, 3, 4 of them every year to help put the budget together, to look for input. And we have, other than 1 or 2 times, have had no one from the public there. We have had a reporter most of the time, and the rest of the time it's the school board. As far as working with our business manager, Brad Hunt, we have taken him to task at many of those workshops, and he has come back and he has provided us not just with an answer, but as Gamble was in his last workshop, he came back with 5 options from which we could choose, and we discussed those options and chose from them. As a matter of fact, the one we chose would have the least impact on the tax base that we're working with. So yes, we have strengths that can work together. We have weaknesses that I would love to see better community support.
Thank you. Mr. Hewitt.
Well, I've been to a few school board meetings more recently. What you don't see, if you come to a board meeting, what you don't see is the hours of preparation, whether or not it's contacting friends that you know and asking for their input, whether or not it's studying the laws that are involved with what's going on, or talking with the administrator about different options that you can solve the problem with, or being a member of a committee, whether or not you're on the curriculum committee, the policy committee, the communications committee. All of those require an awful lot of time. And so what you see is the end product. I would invite you to come to the meetings. I want to commend our president, Todd Horner, because when someone comes to our meeting and brings something to our attention, for years, it went nowhere. That is to say, you never got any feedback. You may not have known that whatever you were talking about we fixed, but we never told you. The board never told you. Now you're going to get a letter. This is what we did. That's part of our communication back to you. So I would invite you to the board meetings. If you have a complaint, please bring it to our attention or suggestion. We really do want your input. As Mr. Henderson said, it's better to be informed than be blind. And so many times we just don't know what you all want. So we have to do our best guess. We demand the most of our teachers. We demand the most of our administrators, and we should be demanding the most of our students and our parents. We should also be demanding the same from us. I owe you that much to do my very best. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Wampler.
Well, among us sitting up here, I probably attended more Gettysburg board meetings than the rest of them. After 38 years, I can remember back when I first started going to board meetings, they would last till 11:30 because they weren't streamlined. They didn't have committees. They didn't have workshop sessions. They did everything that night. And again, a few public people were there, and it would go on, and they back and forth, and you'd be sitting there and going through it all. Over time, that changed. Today, I'd say the strength is that they are very efficient, streamlined. They have all kinds of committees, communication committee, policy committee, and as Todd said, they are open to the public. They are public. They have to be. Okay. The only thing that is the executive sessions when they're discussing personnel cannot be open to the public. I would have to agree with Jim. Why I think one of the weaknesses is the community. We do not get community members at board meetings. They don't show up. And so, I were a board member sitting there. If there's only 3 people out there, obviously the budget's not that important. Over my 38 years, I can remember some years there was a board meeting and the place was packed. They actually had to move it from the boardroom over to James Getty's because it had to do with eliminating, I forget at this time what it was, but it was, and it went on for hours, and people got up and talked, and, you know, and community move things. You know, you can. Board will listen. Okay? So, I think I said enough.
Thank you very much. Actually, the next question that came from the audience, none of you are going to actually have to speak. It's more of a clarification question. Several times throughout the evening, we've been referring to the group that is running together as a group of 5, and we never actually clarified which 5, so if 5 can actually raise their hand, the audience would appreciate it.
And David Green.
I'm sorry, what?
David Green also.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, David Green, who could not be here tonight, as I said earlier. Okay, the original purpose of public education was to prepare our children to understand their critical role in self-government. This seems to be a much lower priority in today's system. Do you think this is a problem? If not, why? If you agree, what will you do about it?
Would you read that one again slower?
Sure. I apologize, I didn't realize it was going to be that long. The original purpose of public education was to prepare our children to understand their critical role in self-government. This seems to be a much lower priority in today's system. Do you think this is a problem? If not, why? If you agree, what will you do about it? And we'll start with that one with Mr. Brock.
Thanks. I'm still waiting on the question.
You want my card?
In some respects, I do agree with that. As a school teacher with 21 years experience, I've seen over my 21 years where what we are required to teach as far as curriculum has been changed and changed and changed again. And what students are now required as far as mandatory tests to take for graduation has meant that we've had to sacrifice some time in some areas to make sure that these students are ready for those tests. You put your money where your mouth is, and when the state says they have to do well in these tests to graduate and move on, then you got to do it. And I, as a teacher at the school level, I'm on the front line, and as many of our vets have done it, when you're given an order, you follow it. But as a school board member, and as Mr. Henderson serves on our state committee, or BSBA, we have a voice where we can let those who are responsible for determining what's important or what's to be taught, let them know as a community, as a board, that we here in Gettysburg might not necessarily agree with what you think is important, everything that's important. But once again, we're the soldiers and we got to follow the orders until things change. Yes, I believe that our students should know that what their role is in self-government. And hopefully as we move forward and we elect politicians over the next couple of years, and those politicians will make the changes that are necessary where we can have our students more aware of self-government and maybe less aware of how much time they're on testing.
Thank you. Mr. Wampler.
Well, being a government teacher, I try to instill that in with students. I would have to sort of agree with Mr. Brett that given today with the state mandates, with constant testing, it's hard to just educate students, just to teach them the things they really, really need to get out there. I'm very concerned about teachers having to teach to the tests. Not that learning isn't going on, but more and more of it's, is the kid going to do well on the test? I saw my little granddaughter come home, was all excited that she scored 90% on a pre-test test, which would tell her what she should do on the test that really counts. And she got an award for that, and I'm thinking, what is she learning? She's learning how to take a test. Is that going to help her become a good citizen? To be self-governed? I'm not too sure. I hope that we don't lose total sight of what education is supposed to be. That's the total education of the student to become. As I mentioned earlier, I think the testimony is our graduates, those that have come back to this community, those that went on to other communities. I'm sure they are contributing to society, holding different jobs and positions and so on. I think that's the real test.
Thank you very much, Ms. Birdwell.
Well, as a teacher, we teach children many things in the classroom, especially with those lower level children that I have. First graders, teaching them to be civil to one another, teaching them democracy, that type of thing in the classroom. But also, a teacher's job is not really just to teach, but to teach the child how to teach themselves. So once you look out in the classroom and you see that child is going beyond what you've already taught them, then they're self-governing. So they are teaching themselves to go beyond that. And when we can do that with children, then we've done our job. So you don't want to look across the classroom and they're always asking you questions, how do you do this, how do you do that? They should be able to figure that out by what you've taught them so far in the classroom and continue to teach them. But that's the happiest moment I have, is when I see children teaching themselves, and then you can just oversee it. So, and of course, the teacher in the classroom now is also being that parent. We're teaching them civil things to get along with one another, how to stand in line without pushing, how to say please and thank you, so that when they do get into society, that they are well prepared.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kravitz.
Well, the word standardized testing has been used a couple of times so far, and you could probably spend the next hour and a half debating whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing. Personally, I think it's impacting our students by not letting them be self-governing. Anybody watches the John Oliver show 2 nights ago? John Oliver did a thing on standardized testing, which I'm can't believe we won it. And it's the first media representation debating standardized testing that I've seen on television. It's good news to begin with. But yeah, I think it's taken away from the self-governance of individuals. It's taken away a lot of the self-governance of our teachers. Teachers, in order to get themselves into a position of advancement, need to show quality in the classroom, and the way they show quality is by standardized testing. If you go to people today, you'll find another negative for standardized testing, where school districts are now sending children home knowing full well they couldn't pass the standardized test, so that the number of people that pass the standardized test goes up, and therefore they can attract more money. Washington Post, page 41. Very interesting article on it, but it is, I do think that one particular item is now taking away from self-governing, our children learning self-governance. It's making them learn how to take tests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blank.
When you all say self-government, a lot of things run through my mind, mainly for social studies kind of thing. Testing-wise, I'm going to go back to where we were. I'm in the class of 63. I don't remember anybody telling me we're going to have tests. We just had them. We took them. We all took them. And of course, we're not, if I remember correctly, I don't remember my parents talking a lot about the state, the federal funds, the state funds. Granted, we need them. They're there. We have to have them. Teaching students, if they know the test, if they know the certain things that we need, what are we teaching them about business? Because it don't work that way. You all know that. it's a come and mishit thing. We try things, if they work, they don't, we change things and we make it move. It's the situation here. One of the biggest self-governing things I had getting out of high school, I got my first paycheck and I want to know who's keeping my money. I want to know whether the federal government was, who the state government was, who the local government was. Damn it, they got my money. And so I think we just approach it that way and just keep going. Again, I'm not in all that big a favor of it, but we'll see how it works out. But I think they do a very nice job over here in town.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson.
I look at two aspects to this question. Self-government, are we teaching them to be active in self-government? I also look at, are we teaching them to be self-directing? Can they look at a problem, work on it, and solve it themselves? Every one of our teachers that we have in the school system now is trying to teach our kids how to be problem solvers. In that way they can be self-directing. As far as self-government, not as high a priority, there's been several things that have been causing that. First off, we don't emphasize with the parents as well as with the students the importance of voting. And primary elections, believe it or not, are more important than the general election, because that's when you put your candidates forward who are going to be ultimately elected. Testing, it's been mentioned a couple of times already. The standardized testing really started recently with the federal government's No Child Left Behind and the state following with the Race to the Top. And I got my own joke on that. You ask me later, I'll tell you later. But the testing mandates and unfunded mandates that they have imposed on us are taking away valuable time that we could be teaching them more in the self-government aspect or the social studies aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
I think that we spend much too time on mandated testing and it takes time away from the students and the teachers, although I also recognize that it's a requirement if you're going to get Pennsylvania funding or federal funding that you're going to sit down and you're going to take those tests with the students are going to take the test. Unfortunately, from my experience with my kids, I have one that made excellent grades, but when it came time to test, she really was having trouble adjusting to the pressures of the test. I had another one that was an average student. Test time came, she maxed it out almost. And my youngest daughter would say, it's not fair. I mean, I study, I make good grades, and Becky is always scoring higher than I am on the test. So some students just don't test well. Unfortunately, I think we are being held hostage by the extra money that they promise us and so forth. And in my opinion, we don't get enough from them, and we need to be pounding on desks even more so that we don't have to make serious cuts down here. But the importance of how well your students do on your test is a grade of how well you are as a teacher. Well, there's nothing could be more inaccurate than that statement. Some students are just better than others. Some take tests better than others. You can be the best teacher that we've got in the elementary school, and you know what? Your students may come out dead last. It doesn't mean that you're the worst teacher. We're putting too much emphasis on it, and we've got politicians, we aren't going to change it, but we've got politicians making decisions that teachers and administrators and educators should be making. Unfortunately, that's a sign of our times. It's not going to change, but we need to be pounding on their desks and letting them know some of the stuff that we just talked about from various members of the board. We've got to start concentrating on the students, and yes, we need to pressure the state and the federal government to provide us more funds so that we can get by. And our rates are much lower than many of the others here in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's something we really need to work on. Thanks.
Thank you. Finally, that question, Mr. Hewitt.
Well, to answer the question about self-government, I would tend to agree with that. But we need to go back and look at where we were 30 or 40 years ago to determine how we got to this spot. Remember 30 or 40 years ago, 2 and 2 was 5. Remember that time? You remember the time where it said, oh, all you got to do is spell the word the way it sounds. If you spell it close enough, that's good to go. You remember the time when high school graduates with a certificate could not read at the 8th grade level? You remember that? What that causes is for you, citizens, to tell the politicians, we want more. And so what did they come up with? They came up with standardized curriculum and standardized tests. Are they good or bad? If it's a valid test, I'm fine with it. When you get a repairman at your house and he opens up a computer to repair whatever he's working on, times change in the last 150 years. And so we are where we are right now. So if it's a valid test, I got no problem with that. As for teaching to the test, if it's a valid test, I got no problem with that. But what else does it does for you, the citizen? With a standardized test, you get to compare whether or not we, the board, and your school district are doing a comparable job. Without standardized tests, you wouldn't know that. Are we better than Fairfield? Are we better than Allegheny or Philadelphia? Standardized tests tell you whether or not we're doing our job. So I'm kind of for standardized tests, because that's feedback for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hewitt, and we'll go on to the final question. We are running out of time, but there's a lot here, so I'm sure the candidates are more than happy to talk to you afterwards. Since campaign funding is a matter of public record, can each candidate speak on who is supporting them financially in their relationship with that person? And we'll start with Mr. Walker.
Well, since this position has no compensation, everybody asks me how's my campaign going or what have I spent, I tell them I'm putting in exactly what I'm going to get paid. I've spent no dollars. I'm going on my name recognition, my dedication to the Gettysburg Area School District and to this community, and to the present students and the future students of this community. So I have no money in my back pocket.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson.
My finances are entirely by myself, and the only costs I have is the cost of buying from Staples the forms that I need to make business cards. So if anyone wants them, I've got business cards with my business on them. That is the total cost that I have spent. I do have costs of transportation that I write off as expenses against my income taxes. I take them as a deduction at that point. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Birdwell.
As a teacher, I can't afford to finance myself. I don't have enough money to buy or what it would take to put out signs. I don't have any signs out either. So I have a lot of friends that have supported me and asked me to join this cause, and they're helping a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruck.
I've spent $0 on this campaign. When I first ran, I bought 4 signs for $27, and one of them is in the back of my pickup. And I have 2 more in my garage, and after last election, I don't know where the one in front of the borough building got to, but anyway. So yeah, I'm running on my reputation as someone who's trying to do what's best for kids, and hopefully the voters see that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vance.
As I mentioned earlier, I signed up for this school board on my own. I was an individual. I bought some signs that have been around. You've seen some of them. I spent slightly over $400 for 100 signs. I put out 75, and I've got 25 hopefully in reserve for my general election. And if not, then I guess we'll go to recycle. So I started off totally on my own. I have met with the other 4 candidates that have been identified as a 5-member group. Each one of us has got strong points, and that's the reason that we collectively came together. Even though, as far as the other signs and the handouts and so forth, I have no idea how much that has cost, and honestly, I can't even name who the members are of the group that's done that. I know 1 or 2 members. I have had neighbors and friends that said, let me donate some money to you, and I said, don't do that. I'm not sure what the laws and so forth are pertaining to it, but if I make the general election, including one of the primaries, I'll get more detail, but I've got at least 8 or 10 individual people that's affiliated with no one other than me and my goals and my priorities that I'm throwing myself out as a candidate to do that. I've also created a separate email through Google that is not charging anything, and if you should want to get in touch with me, it's very simple. It's Bud, all lowercases, Bud, the number 4, schoolboard@gmail.com. That didn't cost me anything, but I will address every question or comment that comes to me. Be patient, it may take me a while, depending on how much interest I get. But it's Bud, the number 4, schoolboard@gmail.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Plank.
As you all know, I just told you already, I was born and raised in this neighborhood. I was asked to do this by friends that I play golf with, and I play a lot of golf. And guess what? After the election, I'm going to play with them again. So that's just the way they are. I play with Mr. Senate and those folks, and they said I could do this. It cost me a nickel out of my pocket. I got a vote. They helped me get names and numbers of people that I needed to get on the ballot to begin with, and that's where it comes from. Nobody's put any money that I know of other than time to run names. I'm a person of my own. I intend to learn. If I'm elected, I'm going to learn this job. I'm going to do what I have to do. But I'm just a simple man, just like you guys. I will come into it. I'm going to learn from these other people. They asked me to join their team, and I said, you bet, because I need all the help I can get. So, and you know where I'm coming from. It's just the way it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hewitt.
As for me, I have not spent any money this time, but I have a request for the Control Gettysburg School District taxes that when they submitted their political action committee registration, they said they were going to support all the candidates. And so to date, they haven't given me any signs. And so I would like to request formally that they make a bunch of signs for me and Keith and Jim and Carlos and put out mailers for us as well. Because that's what they said they would do. They said they would support all of us. And they have not yet done so. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Mr. Kravitz.
Where was son? Where was son?
Want a copy?
No, I'll get it.
All right.
You know, we belong to a community. A community is made up, I would say, almost 30 to 50% educators or married to educators one way or another. I'm also the vice president of the Arts Council, and asked my friends at the Arts Council how they thought about me taking on a position long before we got any support from other individuals. They're all for it. They know what I did for the Arts Council. They know what I can do for the school board. As far as the backing is concerned, as I said, we're a community. Our community has looked at us as a group that have various backgrounds that can do the work as a team, and that's why we came in as a team. I don't know the answer to your question, Bill, about getting other support. And there are our community that's supporting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all the candidates. We'll now move on to final thoughts and a closing statement. We'll start with Mr. Hewitt.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. I don't know if you're here because of the school board or you're here for the other group, but regardless, you've heard us all talk. You know where we're coming from. I thank you for spending 2 hours of your time with us, 2.5. I hope I've not wasted your time. Thank you.
Mr. Kravitz.
Again, thank you all for coming out. I think one of the comments I made, which is the school board is a very good group of people. I've watched them work over the past couple of weeks. But I think in this particular time where enrollment in the school is going down and the cost per student in Gettysburg is going up, which I have to go delve into a little bit more to figure out why that's happening, and why we need the buildings that we have to the extent that the buildings are in place today. I'm impressed with the buildings, but I don't know if we do the right thing spending that much money on those buildings. But again, something to look at. I feel very close to this community. I work with a lot of people that are here that are members of the Arts Council. I've been there for about 8 years. And we've done wonders with our building into the Arts Education Center. What I do see is a lot of kids coming in and taking arts and science programs from us because they were taken out of the school budgets and not in the school system. We love doing it for them, but it belongs in the school system with the parents and the teachers. So I'm running to ensure that the education in the future for this wonderful district excels in everything that we can do. And I do believe a good fresh set of eyes looking at everything and working is the answer. Thank you.
Mr. Plank.
As you all know, again, I come into this thing as just an honest, boring guy. I'm trying to learn exactly what I need to learn, how I need to do it. I joined this team basically because they're all very nice, educated people. I've known them now for the better part of 5 years or more. And I've learned a lot from them. And I've also learned a lot from the gentleman on the end there telling me that he has the facts and the figures in the school and the board, and he's been at the meetings. I intend to do those things. So I'm here, again, it's just one little simple guy, and we'll see what I can do to help him. So, thank you.
Mr. Vance.
Earlier, I gave out an email that everybody can reach me, a couple of other key points. I will gladly work with whatever school board you elect in November if I'm lucky enough to be on, to clear the primary and make the general election. I believe that we can do a quality education without breaking the back of our taxpayers. I will be the steward of the taxpayers, but that's my second priority. My first is that we get the quality education that we need. It is a volunteer position, as has been mentioned out here many times. I have made no promises to anyone. I have no commitments to anyone. So I will be my own person. I want the school board to start thinking out of the box, and just because we haven't done it before don't mean it's not a good idea. I am fully retired. I have no prior commitments, no other jobs, no other obligations other than my sweet wife and my grandkids and my kids. They're all out of town, so I'll catch them between school board meetings. But I'm here to serve you. I served my country for over 30 years. 27 of it was wearing the uniform. And it's now time for me to serve my community if you will help. I ask for your vote and your support in the primaries and in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brook.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out as well, and Elaine and Alex for moderating. Once again, I think my message has been pretty clear and consistent as to where my heart is. And that's looking out for not only my children, but all the children of this district. There are lots of kids in homes around this area that don't have necessarily the best home life. And if left on their own, they're not going to make it. So we need a school system that's going to pull the community together. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And making sure that all of our kids receive a quality education is important to me. So once again, I hopefully you look at my record as I've served on the board, and even though I've looked out for kids, as Mr. Hewitt's statistics have shown, we have tried to do what's best also for the taxpayers. And you know, I hope when our flyers come out, Mr. Hewitt, they look as nice as these. Only I wish the facts are. I just hope they're factual instead of some of the stuff that's on here. So thank you again for coming out.
Thank you very much, Ms. Birdwell.
Thank you to everyone who showed up this evening. I would also like to let you know, I forgot to do this in the beginning, but I graduated from the Messiah College with a BS in education. I went on to Gettysburg and got a Master of Science in Education, and also have my administrative leadership certificate, a certificate in early childhood, and also a certificate in education. So I'm looking forward to being on the board. I really want to do this job. I have the time to do it, even though I teach full time. I have time for this, and I want to better my community and to help the children that live here. And I would also agree with the gentleman at the end, I think it was at the end, who said the children in this community, there are some that don't get what they need. And I heard a long time ago, if you take care of them in the high chair, you won't have to take care of them in the electric chair. So let's take care of them when they're young, give them a great education, and I'm here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henderson.
I also would like to thank Elaine for your Dr. Hayes for taking part in this, setting it up. I thank all of you for coming. I would like to make a couple of critical points. First, our children are our future. I'll repeat that. Our children are our future. Everything we do ultimately has to aim at improving that situation, or we will in the end suffer. Our biggest financial impacts that the school board has to deal with are driven by the legislature. I work up there with them, and I know the first thing we have to do is educate the legislature. If you take a look at their backgrounds, I think one or two might have some education background other than going to school. They have an inequitable funding formula that is hurting us. The actual number, you came close to it, is $2,700 for each of our students, with over $10,000 to other students in other districts per student. PSERS, Pennsylvania School Employee Retirement System, is hurting. They started, the legislature caused it 10 years ago, and it's getting us to really hurt now. Cost levied on us by charter and cyber charter schools. And they underperform our public schools significantly. Unfunded mandates, excessive testing. And again, I'll repeat, the TIFs are not a function of the school board. Large for-profit operations have other sources on which to draw. They do not help the students in any way, and they will burden our existing tax base. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Walford.
Again, I want to thank you for coming out. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is democracy at work. And I will gladly talk to any of you afterwards for a few minutes. As I mentioned, 38 years in the district. I think I have knowledge of the district's mission, vision, and goals. And I think with my knowledge, I can work with the other age board members, whoever they are, and with community feedback, I'm ready to enact sound educational policies, hire professional staff to accomplish that, and I'll allocate the resources necessary to make all of it happen. I will use my power as a board member to make sure that the interests of students come first when making the difficult decisions facing the Gettysburg Area School District today and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wampler, and I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the candidates for coming out here tonight. I think it is awesome that we have so many candidates, and also two more who cannot make it tonight for one position. But we know with every good thing comes a bad thing, so we did not get to as many questions as I would have liked to tonight. But like I said several times, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you afterwards, or somehow they said give their emails out. I close all of these debates by reminding people that telling you guys to go vote on May 19th is pointless. Now, if you weren't planning on going to vote, you won't be here tonight. What I would like you to do is find two people who you don't think has gone and vote, and they have to be registered because it's a little too late for that, and invite them to go to the polls with you. It doesn't matter what their political parties are, what their beliefs are, or which candidates they're supporting. The poll numbers here in Adams County and pretty much across the nation, they're terrible. 17 and 20%, it's pathetic. We can do better than that as a community. So let's make Adams County the model for the rest of Pennsylvania. Also, on Tuesday, May 12th, the primary voters guide will be inserted into the Gettysburg Times, so be sure to look for that. I'd like to thank Elaine and all the candidates, and you as well.
Let's thank Al. Very attentive audience, and it's been worth every minute of it. And Todd Horner, who is the president of the school board, would like 1 minute of your time.
1 minute, I promise. I got it. I'm going to turn them all on, and then turn me on here. On behalf of the Gettysburg Area School District, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out here tonight, and each of the candidates. And I am the Todd they were talking about. I was lurking in the back of the room watching the video camera. But the reason I'm up here is we talked about committee meetings and workshops. We have 3 standing committees at the school district: communications, curriculum,
and
Policy.
Thank you. And they meet once a month. Communications is the first Thursday of each month, except there's no meeting this month, and it's the second Thursday of next month because of graduation. So the next communications committee meeting will be June 11th at the administration building at 3:30, and it is open to the public. We meet in a small conference room. If we have a lot of people, we'll move to the boardroom. The next committee that meets is the second Tuesday of each month, and that's policy at 4 o'clock, same invitation. And then the third committee is a curriculum, which meets the third Thursday of the month. Again, all of those are at the administration building, and curriculum meets at 3:30. We also, our regular meetings for business are the first and third Monday of each month, except in July, we only have one meeting. It's the usually the first. Watch the paper. It's too confusing. Also, we have workshops. Those workshops are always advertised, and they will also be part of the agenda for the meeting. We usually have them before or after. And again, everybody was right. Please take the time, at least come to a board meeting, because I hear those raspberry-filled cookies, as Bud said, are to die for. I'm partial to the sugar cookies. Thank you all for coming, and again, be safe, and the DFA meeting is...
The next board meeting is next Monday. We don't have the third.
Good point. Next board meeting is next Monday at 7 o'clock. Very short agenda. We also have our final budget workshop at 6 o'clock. That meeting will be at the middle school in the LGI room. You can park along the side or in front, come on in. Again, the last budget at 6, and then the regular meeting at 7. Thanks for reminding me.
Thank you again.